February 8, 1974, ABC Studios, New York City. In 15 minutes, Wide World of Sports would go live to 40 million American viewers. What was supposed to be a simple interview to promote Muhammad Ali's upcoming fight with Joe Frazier would instead become the most powerful moment in television history. A moment that would expose the ugly truth about intellectual prejudice and prove that education isn't measured by diplomas, but by character. In the green room, Muhammad Ali sat quietly reading a leather-bound copy of Shakespeare's Othello. He had no idea that in the next 18 minutes, he would use that very play to deliver the most devastating intellectual knockout of his career. Not in a boxing ring, but on live television, bringing a prominent TV host to tears and forcing him to apologize to the entire nation. This is the incredible true story of how Muhammad Ali destroyed decades of racial stereotypes with a single Shakespeare quote, and why what happened next changed American television forever. If stories about intelligence triumphing over prejudice move you, subscribe for more incredible moments that prove the mind can be the most powerful weapon of all. Howard Cunningham was everything that represented intellectual authority in 1970s America. At 52 years old, he was one of ABC's most prominent sports broadcasters, a Yale graduate with an Ivy League pedigree and New England aristocracy flowing through his veins. His Brooks Brothers suits were perfectly tailored. His Yale class ring gleamed on his finger, and his condescending manner toward athletes, especially black boxers, was legendary in television circles. To Howard, sports were work for simple men. Boxing, in particular, was nothing more than organized violence performed by muscle heads and brainless animals. He had built his career on the assumption that athletic ability and intellectual capacity were mutually exclusive, and he took particular pleasure in exposing what he saw as the intellectual limitations of his guests. Muhammad Ali, on the other hand, was at a fascinating crossroads in his life. It was 1974, just months after his stunning victory over George Foreman and Zaire had reclaimed his heavyweight title. But Ali was no longer just a boxer. He had become a cultural phenomenon, a man who spoke his mind on everything from religion to war to social justice. Still, in the minds of many white Americans, he remained what Howard Cunningham was about to call him, just someone who throws punches. As Ali sat in the green room, producer Mark Stevens entered with a clipboard and a tense expression. "Ali, 5 minutes. Howard's ready for you." Stevens' voice lowered as he continued. "Listen, Howard's going to be tough today. You know how he is about athletes, especially boxers. He calls them muscle heads, brainless animals." Ali closed his book, making sure Shakespeare's name was visible on the cover. "I know," he said calmly. "If he pushes too hard," Stevens offered, "I can cut away. We can go to commercial." "No," Ali said firmly. "Don't cut, we stay live. Let Howard say whatever he wants." Stevens looked doubtful. "Ali, he's going to belittle your intelligence. He'll use the dumb boxer stereotype. He's trying to provoke you." Ali stood up, slipping the Shakespeare book into his jacket pocket. "Mark, let him say what he wants. Then I'll respond." Stevens wanted to protest, but something in Ali's eyes, calm, focused, like before a fight, told him this was decided. "Just be careful," Stevens said finally. "Howard's got a sharp tongue, and 40 million people will be watching." Ali smiled. "Good, then 40 million people will learn something tonight." The red, on-air, light illuminated. Howard Cunningham sat behind his desk in a perfect Brooks Brothers suit, his Yale ring gleaming, reading glasses hanging from a chain around his neck, every inch the Ivy League intellectual. He turned to the camera with barely concealed condescension. "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight we have an interesting guest, Muhammad Ali, a boxer. In 1 week he'll fight Joe Frazier again, for those who enjoy that sort of thing. Welcome, Ali." Ali walked onto the set with his hand extended. Howard shook it, but the grip was limp, distasteful, as if Ali's hand were dirty. Ali sat down, smiling, but his eyes saw everything: the dismissive tone, the calculated disrespect, the setup that was coming. Howard began, glancing at his notes. "So, Ali, you're returning to the ring to punch and be punched. Tell us, what kind of career is this? What's it like to dedicate your life to physical violence?" The tone was clear and dismissive. Ali remained calm. "Boxing is an art, Howard. Not just physical, it's mental, strategic." Howard laughed, a patronizing, belittling laugh that echoed through the studio. "Art, Ali, please. Art is Michelangelo. Art is Beethoven. Art is Shakespeare. You run around a ring and throw punches. That's reflex, instinct, something animal." But no, the studio audience murmured uncomfortably. This was blatant disrespect. Even for Howard Cunningham, Ali maintained his smile. So you like Beethoven, Howard? Howard raised his eyebrows, surprised. Of course, I'm a classical music enthusiast. Why do you ask? Which symphony is your favorite? The Ninth, Ode to Joy. Why are you asking? Ali leaned forward. Because I love it too. Especially the fourth movement. The choral section. All Menschen werden Brüder. All men become brothers. Beautiful, isn't it? Howard's face froze. You know German? A little. Ali smiled. Enough to read Beethoven's lyrics. And Howard, I noticed something. Beethoven wrote the Ninth Symphony when he was completely deaf. He couldn't hear the music, but he could feel it in his body, in the vibrations. Just like boxing. When I enter the ring, I feel the music, my opponent's rhythm, the tempo of footwork, the melody of punches. This isn't instinct, Howard. This is composition. The audience began to applaud. Howard looked panicked. This wasn't going according to plan. Interesting theory. Howard tried to recover, his voice harder now. But Ali, let's be honest here. You didn't even finish high school. You never went to college. You don't read books. You're an athlete. Athletic talent, yes, but intellectual capacity, cultural sophistication, these aren't your domain. He paused, removed his glasses, and cleaned them in a patronizing manner that had become his trademark. Then he delivered the line that would change everything. You're just someone who throws punches. Uneducated, uncultured, someone who knows nothing beyond the ring. Silence. 40 million Americans stared at their television screens, and Ali reached into his pocket and pulled out his book, Shakespeare's Othello. He placed it on the desk in front of Howard. Do you know what this is, Howard? Howard looked at the book uncomfortably. Shakespeare's Othello. Everyone knows that. Which scene? Ali interrupted. What? Which scene is your favorite in Othello? Howard stuttered. Act 3, I suppose. When Ago. Act 3, Scene 3, Ali completed. When Ago tells Othello the lie that Desdemona has been unfaithful, and Othello, powerful, brave General Othello, believes him. Why? Because Ago is white. Because Othello, deep inside, doubts himself. I am just a Moorish soldier. I am uneducated, uncultured. How could someone as noble as Desdemona love me? Ali paused, looking directly into Howard's eyes. Shakespeare wrote this play 400 years ago, but it's still relevant because there are still people like you, Howard, who think a black man can be strong but never intelligent. A black man can fight but never think. Howard's face reddened. I didn't say that. You did. Ali's voice rose but remained controlled. You said exactly that. Uneducated, uncultured, knows nothing beyond the ring. You said it on live television in front of 40 million people. Ali stood up and began pacing the stage, his hands moving as he spoke, not with anger, but with the passion of a teacher who had found the perfect moment to deliver the most important lesson of his life. Let me tell you something, Howard. I grew up in Louisville, Kentucky, in the black neighborhood. Our school, the black school, couldn't get books because the white schools got them first. Our school got the old books, torn pages, missing covers, sometimes 10 years old. But I read every night because my mother would say, Ali, they'll see your muscles, but they won't see your mind. Not until you speak. So read, learn, prove yourself. Ali's voice grew stronger. And I read Shakespeare, Langston Hughes, James Baldwin, Aristotle, Marcus Aurelius. I read because I wanted to know, how does the world work? How do people think? How does history repeat itself? He stopped directly in front of Howard. And then I became famous, world champion, and people like you, looked and only saw the muscles. Is just a boxer. He just throws punches, no brain. But Howard, I prepare strategy before every fight. I analyze every opponent's style. I study their weaknesses, their strengths, their psychological tendencies. I write poetry, prediction poems about which round I'll win. I manipulate the media, creating my own image, controlling it. This isn't just muscle. This is strategy, psychology, art. But you don't see it because I'm black, and in your world, black men can't think. The audience erupted in applause, but Ali raised his hand for silence. He wasn't finished. You want to know what the real difference is between me and you, Howard? Howard sat frozen, unable to respond. You went to Yale. You studied literature. You read Shakespeare in classrooms with leather chairs and oak tables. Professors told you what to think, what to analyze, what to conclude. I read Shakespeare in the gym between rounds of training, with sweat on the pages. And nobody told me what to think. I had to figure it out myself. I had to see myself in Othello, a black man in a white world, constantly having to prove he's worthy of respect. Ali's voice grew softer. but somehow more powerful. So yes, Howard, you're educated. You have diplomas on your wall. But education isn't about degrees. It's about understanding. It's about seeing the world clearly. It's about having the courage to question what you've been taught. And right now, on this stage, I'm looking at a man with a Yale degree who hasn't learned the most basic lesson: respect. The silence that followed was absolute. After what felt like an eternity on live television, maybe 30 seconds, maybe a minute, Howard Cunningham spoke, his voice cracked. "You're right." Ali turned, surprised. "What?" "You're right," Howard repeated, tears now forming in his eyes. I judged you deliberately, and I knew what I was doing." He put his hands to his face, and when he looked up, the tears were streaming down his cheeks. "Ali, I went to Yale. Literature degree. I've read all of Shakespeare's plays. I listen to classical music. I go to the opera. And I thought that made me superior. That made me cultured. But the truth is, I'm afraid." Ali leaned forward. "Afraid of what?" Howard looked at him, eyes glistening. "Afraid that you're everything I wanted to be. You're brave. You're charismatic. You stand up for principles. You refused Vietnam, risked your career, endangered your freedom. And people love you. While I'm pressed shirts and safe university education, but nobody loves me because I never took risks. I never was myself. I just conformed to the system." Howard tried to stand, but his knees were shaking. "And worst of all, I belittle black people because they're brave, because they own their identity, because they fight the system. And I'm jealous. I'm a Yale graduate, but I've never been free. You didn't finish high school, but you're the freest man in the world." Howard broke down completely on live television. National broadcast, 40 million viewers watching. "I'm sorry, Ali, you were right. I judged. I belittled. And I'm so ashamed." The camera stayed on them. In the control booth, the producer gestured frantically. Should they cut to commercial? But Mark Stevens shook his head. "No, let it play out." Ali slowly stood up, approached Howard, and extended his hand. "Howard, listen to me." Howard looked up, tears streaming down his face. "You judge by diplomas. I judge by character. And right now, in this moment, you just admitted your mistake on live television in front of 40 million people. That's courage, Howard. Real courage." Howard took Ali's hand and pulled himself up. "But I humiliate you," apologized. Ali cut him off. "We all make mistakes. The difference is you apologize to everyone publicly. That makes you strong, not weak." Then Ali did something no one expected. He hugged Howard, right there in front of the cameras. The studio audience gasped, then erupted in applause. When they separated, Ali kept his hand on Howard's shoulder and turned to address the camera directly. "America, listen to me. Education isn't in diplomas. Education is in character. Howard taught me something today. Honesty, courage, forgiveness. And I thank him for that." He looked back at Howard. "You know what the real problem is? We've been taught to measure intelligence by where you went to school, by what degrees you have, by whether you talk like professors. But intelligence is about curiosity. It's about asking questions. It's about having the humility to admit when you're wrong. Howard has a Yale degree. I don't have a high school diploma. But tonight we both learned something. We both grew. And that's what real education looks like." The applause grew louder. People in the studio audience were crying. In living rooms across America, 40 million viewers sat transfixed. This was supposed to be a sports interview. It had become something else entirely. A masterclass in human dignity, intellectual courage, and the transformative power of genuine education. Howard wiped his eyes, took a deep breath, and spoke into the camera. "I've been a broadcaster for 20 years. I've interviewed hundreds of athletes, and I've treated many of them, especially black athletes, with the same condescension I showed Ali tonight. I dismissed their intelligence. I reduced them to their physical abilities." His voice grew stronger. "And I was wrong, profoundly wrong. Muhammad Ali isn't just a great boxer. He's a great thinker, a great speaker, a great human being. And I'm sorry it took him calling me out on national television for me to see it." He turned to Ali. "Thank you for not walking away, for teaching me, for showing me what I couldn't see." Ali smiled, that famous Ali smile, warm and genuine. "Howard, you want to know the secret?" "What secret?" "The secret to real intelligence. It's this: never stop learning, never stop questioning, and never assume you know everything about someone based on how they look or where they came from. I learned that from a white man once. My trainer, Angelo Dundee. He could have looked at me, young black kid from Kentucky, didn't finish school, and thought, he's just muscle. But he saw something else. He saw potential. He saw intelligence. And he treated me with respect from day one. That's why I'm here today. Not because of my fists, but because someone believed in my mind. Ali looked directly into the camera. So tonight, I'm asking everyone watching, who are you underestimating? Who are you judging by their appearance instead of their character? Who are you dismissing because they don't fit your idea of what smart looks like? Because maybe, just maybe, they're smarter than you think, and maybe you're missing out on learning something incredible. The show ran 18 minutes over. Nobody cared. The next day, newspapers across America led with the story, television's most powerful moment. Ali defeats racism on live TV with love. The New York Times wrote, last night, Muhammad Ali once again proved that his greatest weapon isn't his fists, but his intelligence and compassion. The Washington Post declared, in 18 minutes, a simple boxer taught an Ivy League graduate more about humanity than 4 years at Yale ever could. Howard Cunningham received over 25,000 letters in 1 week. From black families, thank you for being honest. For the first time, we saw a white man admit his prejudice on live television and actually mean it. From white families, you taught us we were prejudiced too. We're not anymore. And most importantly, from universities, Harvard, Yale, Princeton, inviting Muhammad Ali as a guest speaker to teach their students about leadership, character, and intelligence. Ali accepted. Between 1975 and 1980, he spoke at over 50 universities. And at every speech, he said the same thing: a diploma doesn't make you educated. Character makes you educated. What nobody expected was how that single 18-minute segment would change American television forever. Within a month, 3 major networks announced new policies. No more athlete stereotyping. Treat all guests with equal respect. Black sports journalists who had been relegated to color commentary roles started getting hired as lead anchors. Howard Cunningham himself underwent a transformation. He requested to interview more black athletes, more minority athletes. But this time he did his homework. He read their backgrounds. He learned their interests beyond sports. 6 months after the Ali interview, Howard sat down with tennis champion Arthur Ashe. Instead of asking only about tennis, he asked about Ashe's activism, his reading habits, his views on education. The interview was so well received that it won an Emmy. Howard's acceptance speech was simple. I owe this award to Muhammad Ali. He taught me that my job isn't to diminish my guests. It's to illuminate them, to show the world who they really are, not who I assume them to be. But the deepest impact wasn't in television ratings or Emmy awards. It was in the letters, thousands of them from young black Americans. I'm 17. I want to be a writer. Everyone tells me black kids should play sports, not write poetry. But I saw Muhammad Ali quote Shakespeare on TV, and I thought, maybe I can do both. I'm in college, engineering major. My professor said I was surprisingly articulate for someone from my background. I was about to drop out, then I saw Ali's interview. Now I'm staying, and I'm going to prove him wrong. I'm 12. I thought being smart meant acting white. But Ali showed me, being smart means being yourself. Ali kept every single one of those letters, stored them in boxes in his home. And years later, when people asked him about his greatest achievement, he wouldn't talk about the Thriller in Manila or the rumble in the jungle. He'd point to those boxes. These letters. He'd say, these are my real championship belts. The interview that began with a host calling Ali uneducated ended up proving that true education has nothing to do with where you went to school and everything to do with how willing you are to learn, to grow, and to see the humanity in others. Muhammad Ali's Shakespeare quote didn't just make Howard Cunningham cry. It opened the eyes of an entire nation to what real intelligence looks like. And it all started with a book in a jacket pocket and the courage to prove that being underestimated can be the greatest advantage of all.